Ladies and gentlemen, after this wonderful speech by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, I would like to invite the Special Rapporteur, who has also some comments to address the forum. The floor is yours.
Thank you, distinguished Chair, Excellencies, dear friends. There are many challenges in trying to accommodate in less than 2 days as many participants as possible out of the around 400 who have registered. Now, this was understood and shared with you in the pre-forum meeting for participants on Thursday. We divided the forum in four more focus sessions, which we believed would provide perhaps a better chance to identify and to select participants who had not had an opportunity to make a statement before. We thought this would work quite well, and it has worked. It has worked, it's an improvement, but it's still not good enough. There are clearly participants who have not been able to make statements for various reasons. And let's admit it, the time available for everyone seems insignificant when we think of everything that was needed for some of you to be here yesterday and today. The Chair, the moderators, and all of the United Nations staff and volunteers will continue today, and we will try, as far as is possible, to include those who have not had the opportunity to make statements. But given the constraints in terms of time and procedures, there is no magic solution to the challenge that represents. As much as we try, there will be situations where not everyone will have probably an opportunity of making a statement. Now, I want to commend the Chair, the moderators, and all of you for a first day that in a number of ways is working much better, but there's still room for improvement. My mandate as Special Rapporteur indicates that I am to guide the work of the Forum on Minority Issues. I want to tell you that at the end of this year's Forum, I will set into motion a consultation process and a survey of the Forum's stakeholders to study the issues of our format and our procedures in light of its objectives and the expectations of all the interested parties. Now, the format, our procedures, and especially how we can accommodate as many participants as possible are going to have to be looked at much more closely. And new approaches put into place next year that might be even more effective in providing ways so that this platform is even more responsive and adapted to its objectives and expectations. There has been, and I want you to realize this, there has been over the last few years a huge increase in participation and interest since the start of the Forum, and the start of the Forum some 10 years ago. It is, therefore, an appropriate moment to begin in the next few months an examination of how it can be improved and reshaped to meet some of the challenges that we've recently been experiencing with this Forum. Once again, I would like to commend the Chair, the moderators, for helping improve the situation this year. I want to thank the participants for your patience, and I hope you'll understand that while everyone here will be making today their best efforts to include and accommodate as many of you as possible, the constraints are such that there will be no easy solution. There is no perfect solution at this point. Mr. Chair, I would like to give you back the floor.
Thank you very much, Special Rapporteur, for your remarks. It's very, very pertinent and it's very useful for the way ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, we gathered here for 2 days coming from all corners of the world with very clear objective: to empower minority youth, to help them obtain recognition for their existing qualifications, access to quality learning formal education, skill buildings, opportunity, employment, inclusion as stakeholders and leaders in the economic, social, and political sectors. The majority of the minority youth around the world look at us here today, waiting for us to have positive dialogue, exchange of views that would lead to positive recommendations for the future of millions and millions of young people waiting outside this room. Therefore, this cannot be achieved through abusive or disrespectful language or derogatory and inflammatory remarks. Neither this can be or nor can be achieved through exclusion, marginalization, and discrimination. So it is our responsibility collectively, and it's our accountability towards the millions of youth that we use this forum in order to come up as a dialogue, in order to come up with positive recommendations for their future. Therefore, before I hand over to the panel, I would like just to remind ourselves that we should adhere strictly to the topic under discussion, to the time frame, and to use an acceptable language when we present our cases. I have been reminded that some people might have left their belongings unattended. So please make sure that you don't leave your property, your bag, your suitcase unattended, because the United Nations will not be responsible for any loss in the building. With that statement, I would like to take this opportunity to start the discussion on item number 4 of the agenda, entitled Minority Youth and the Media in the Digital Age, Acceptance and Opportunity. The speaking time limits are 5 minutes for the panelists and 2 minutes for the participants, in order to give the opportunity for as many people as possible. It's my pleasure to introduce the panel. Ms. Marina Shupak, a former OHCHR Minority Fellow. She contributed to the creation of Youth Group of Inter-Ethnic Solidarity. I would like also to introduce Mr. Jonathan Jackson, a co-founder and head of corporate brand at Balivity. I would like also to introduce Ms. Anju. Anju is leading a collective of young Dalit women leaders at the All India Dalit Mahila Adhikar. Thank you. It's also my pleasure to introduce Ms. Rita Isaac Ndaye, moderator for this important session. You all remember that she was recently the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues, a role that she had held since 2011. And she is a member elect to the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. May I give the floor now to Ms. Marina Shupak. 5 minutes for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Zaman Khairol Sun. I greet you in Gagauz language, which is language of my grandmother. Добрый день. I greet you in Bulgarian language, which is language of my father. Bună ziua. I greet you in the state language of Moldova. But I will talk in my mother tongue, which is Russian, so please take your headphones. Дорогие участники форума,
Distinguished forum participants, I can see that perhaps you are impatiently waiting for our session to conclude so that you can come forward with your recommendations on the projects which have brought us together here in Geneva. 2 years ago, I was in your place. I participated in the OHCHR program on minority issues, and I sat in this very room, held my statement in my hand, and waited for my turn, listening to the others. And what I heard astonished me. There were so many different activists, so many different countries, but the issues were very similar. And when my turn came, it appeared that the recommendation which I had prepared had already been given, not just by Moldova, but by other countries and to them. And this brought to mind an idea that there is solidarity with ethnic, religious, and cultural groups, and there's one prerequisite for moving ahead the rights of minorities, and that is that solidarity. And this is why I then undertook a traineeship with the OHCHR in Moldova, bringing together different communities, in particular youth minority communities. And this is why I and other activists were able to facilitate a platform for minority youth, and that is called the Youth Inter-Ethnic Solidarity Group. The members of this group are young people who took part in a traineeship in Moldova, a diversity traineeship. And this provides the opportunity to young professionals who have encountered discrimination to fulfill their potentials within Moldova. This was part of UN Diversity program, and you know that history. This group uses social media so as to achieve its goals, and I'll share with you my experience. First of all, we have learned that social media can indeed mobilize communities. But youth of minorities will only be more active online if they feel safe offline, because unfortunately they are not always sure about that, and they can encounter hate speech against them. And here I would call upon all to focus on the resolution to develop mechanisms to counter hate speech on the internet. Secondly, social media can and should be a resource to move forward diversity, but it is important to have an intersectoral approach. For example, there is access to state sites that is necessary, where there would be access not only to linguistic diversity, but also access to people with disabilities. But let's be honest, minority youth, in particular rural youth, often does not have access to the internet. So here there's another recommendation to provide for access to internet free of charge and minority language schools, in particular in those areas where minorities live together in a compact fashion. We do use the social media, but what next? How can we get through to the majorities? I think that one opportunity is with online media. Are there any journalists from minorities here? Could you raise your hands if that is the case? I see some of my colleagues here, and I would like to greet you. I'm also a journalist. I work in one of the leading online media in Moldova called Maker. And here's my next recommendation: to support minority media, not just because we need to work with minority languages, but because this brings together communities. I'll give you an example. In our media team, we have shared the recommendations of the Special Rapporteur on Minorities of 2016, and it was noticed that the Moldovan society was very fragmented. So what we did was we launched multimedia projects to present Moldovan history in an inclusive fashion. For example, one of our projects was on the Holocaust of the Roma and the Jews in Moldova. Hundreds of our readers commented our project and said that this was not studied in the schools and universities of our country. It was not known that minorities were massively exterminated in our country. So again, I would encourage you to use online media to diversify our society and bring it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Ms. Shupak. In fact, before we move to the next panelist, maybe it's to gain time, I would like to ask the floor, those who would like to make comment, to participate in this debate, in this discussion, those who would like to make oral intervention, to either raise your nameplate, those who have nameplate, or your hands, so that the colleagues could come around, take your name, we compile the list of participants, and then we continue with the panel. Thank you. We will take sort of 5 minutes maybe to register, just to make sure that we don't miss anybody. Ladies and gentlemen, registration is going on and it will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, let's resume our presentations. I give the floor to Mr. Jonathan Jackson. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jonathan Jackson, and I am one of the co-founders of Blavity, a media platform and community focused on empowering people of African descent based in the United States through original written content, video, and physical gatherings. In the interest of time, I'd like to play a quick video to showcase who we are, give a brief overview of why we exist, and then end with 2 recommendations that I believe can help minority youth build sustainable media narratives. Blavity is a response to a persistent struggle that underpins much of how African Americans in the United States fight against inaccurate representation and visibility in the stories that govern the current zeitgeist. Narratives shape culture, culture shapes the places we live, the work we do, and the nations we call home. Blavity's goal is to make sure that these narratives specific to black youth are reflective of the beauty and power with which we live our lives and design our future. We exist at the intersection of community, media, and technology, which we see as bridging the gap between where we are and where we have the potential to be. This is especially relevant given the UN's current decade-long focus on people of African descent who have globally been subject to their narratives being co-opted against them. The power of media lies in its ability to affirm people that their very existence can be seen as a form of positive resistance. The proliferation of digital tools in the current age allows for our community to come together in unique ways to combat issues that have direct consequences on our bodies and minds. For black youth in the United States, misrepresentation in media exacerbates consequences both seen and unseen. These systemic issues manifest in ways such as food insecurity in urban centers, housing discrimination, access to quality health care, economic stratification, broadening wealth gap, a criminal justice system that targets communities of color from infancy, and most recently an aggressive campaign against deportation of various immigrants of African descent. How, and more specifically who tells these stories, is a critical component in making sure voices are heard, protected, and affirmed. The lies told about us often become the realities we are forced to contend with. Specific to recommendations, I have 2 specific ones for the committee on the topic of minority youth and media. For minority youth-owned and operated media to survive and youth to be at the forefront, there needs to be a focus on government and public as well as private institutions to create ecosystems that give pathways and access to resources and not simply regulation of current ones. Innovation does not happen in a vacuum. It demands investment and persistent opportunity creation. This can be spurred by initiatives to provide physical space for youth to build innovations, stipends, and other initiatives to present what we find in the United States called brain drain, where the talented young leaders of cities and states often leave where they are from because the conditions are untenable. As it relates to youth and their ability to build these increased platforms, according to the World Economic Forum, 50% of the jobs young people are being trained for right now will not exist when they enter the workforce. The demand for digital skills is at a fever pitch, and for that trend to be reversed and that gap to be bridged, cities, countries, and member states must prioritize the kinds of skills and exposure for the jobs of the future, starting today. This can look like a focus on both STEAM initiatives, focusing on what jobs will look like, presentation skills, and critical thinking. In closing, and being inspired by these current proceedings, I am reminded of James Baldwin's seminal words, which ring even truer today than when he spoke them a few decades ago. To know from whence you came, when you know from whence you came, there are absolutely no limitations to where you can go. Thank you.
May I introduce Ms. Anju? You have the floor.
Thank you for having me here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Anju, and I represent All India Dalit Women Rights Forum in New Delhi, India. I'm a Dalit women activist working with young women from my community in reclaiming our right and dignity. I travel across the country mobilizing youth towards amplifying our voice to end caste apartheid. It's a great opportunity and my honor to share my experience with you. I have organized several social media training for our people as it's very much needed for us to enter this online space and highlight our issues, for spreading awareness, mobilizing our people and building networks across the world. As we all know, mainstream media doesn't cover issues because it is owned by dominant caste people, and that's why it has always been unresponsive or misrepresentative of caste and gender issues. Hence, social media is a space that we feel we can make use of to mobilize voices for our campaign. The available digital tools give us the access and freedom to write our own perspective. This is the way to break dominant hegemony and create our own story. And we have always created our own media by our own people like Dalit Camera, Roundtable India, and Ambedkar Karma and Saveri. But as we see through, they have many followers on YouTube and social media, etc. And they also face so much challenges by the government and dominant caste people in power. For example, Dalit Camera, a community-run YouTube channel focusing on anti-caste issues, was pulled off the web by right force wing recently, but after a lot of protest on social media, it came back. As we know, everything has two sides, positive and negative. Social media gives us power and freedom to express our feeling, but on another hand, young women like me who are on social media face particular challenges. When I started tweeting from my handle at Dalit Awaz, I had a lot of trolls attacking me, making threats on my life and sexual harassing me online. I had a lot of harassing me. I have seen that our people face so many challenges on these online spaces. Lack of access for majority of marginalized people is a main issue, as these online spaces are highly dominated by dominant caste and English-speaking people. Language is another hurdle that divides us and keeps us from sharing ideas across the region. In a country like India, which has more than 200 languages, you can only imagine the complexity of navigating the digital space. Though some of us have entered the digital domain, we still need a huge push for more women from my community to be active on social media with the needed security and confidence. For this, advanced training on new innovative tools is very necessary. If we see the survey, India has highest user on Facebook worldwide, which is 241 million. The biggest question is who are they 241 million people, and how social media can be used for further the cause of anti-caste work. How can women like me be able to gain more efficient access? In spite of all these challenges, we must use social media so that the whole world can know and see what is happening with Dalit communities. That's why we decide not to leave but take measures to overcome these challenges. We have to use the social media to reach out the world, so we included basic digital security tips in our social media trainings, like how to protect password and privacy setting, etc. If I talk about the opportunity and limits of digital media is a very open and public space which gives us equal opportunity to all, but here also we face more exclusion. Wherever we talk about our rights for our issues, immediately we got bad trolls. This online backlash level is very high, and also the issue of access is very crucial. Majority of our Dalit communities struggle with issue of basic access to food, land, water, sanitation, education, employment, etc. So the issue of social media among our communities is restricted to the few people who have managed to gain some amount of upward mobility, which means access to a smartphone and basic internet. If I talk about the mobilization of people for action, Dalit Win Fight campaign and Dalit History Month are example of how we can use social media in the digital age to reach a larger global audience. Initiatives like this have increased visibility to the issue and builds momentum to the campaign. However, once again the challenges related to access limits the outreach to the larger number of people from the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anju. Thank you for the entire panel discussion. May I now ask Ms. Isaac Ndaye, I have the pleasure to ask you to moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome everyone. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate to my successor, Mr. Fernando Varén, for his appointment. I wish him all the best in this new position. I believe that the Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues holds one of the most challenging and exciting special procedures mandates. And listening to his virtues and priorities, I trust that you will be extremely busy in the coming years ahead of you, and I wish you continued strength to keep up the good work that you have been doing. And since it fell under my term to decide about the actual theme of this forum, I really appreciate to be here and have the opportunity to be part of the discussion. I thank you for the invitation. The topic of this morning's session is minority youth and the media in the digital age, an acceptance and opportunity. The discussion will examine the challenges and opportunities offered by digital media technologies for minority youth and young women in particular to exercise and defend their rights. Also to promote awareness and acceptance of diversity in society and to solicit and analyze minority youth concerns and views while respecting their right to privacy. I prepared a long statement, it's printed here, but looking at the watch and knowing how many of you would like to speak, especially those who have not yet spoken, I will just skip it and maybe add it during the discussion. I just have a few things to share with you. First of all, I love working with young people because of their energies, the passion and the creativity, which you already heard from the panelists, and it made it obvious why. I met lots of young minority people during my missions who came with their innovative ideas and concrete plans on how to transform their own and their communities' lives. They use arts, culture and media to communicate their views and mobilize others for action. They are eager to take up leadership positions and prove the world that they have a place in it and one that will make it better. We will talk today about digital media, which has indeed provided us with new opportunities. For example, it gives new spaces for minority groups to participate in public debate. And I hope that some speakers will talk today about how they use social media for mobilization and activism for minority youth. But social media works both ways. By contacting and joining like-minded groups, we can reinforce our own views and ideas about the world. At the same time, it also allows us to get access and peep into other groups' discussions whose ideology and worldview might be completely different from ours, and where we otherwise would not have access to. I, for example, follow several extremist far-right groups on social media because I want to understand their mindset, what makes them angry, what takes their attention, and what triggers their reaction. Pluralistic media is key to providing independent and objective information as it incorporates diverse viewpoints. Media diversity not only refers to the existence of varied media outlets, but to the access to mass media by minority groups, as well as to the existence of a plurality of viewpoints within media outlets. And I know that many of you came with pre-prepared statements today, but I would like to remind you that you can ask the Secretariat to post them on the Forum's website. And you can also use your time today to have a more interactive, lively and spontaneous discussion. And I have a few questions that you could consider responding to and coming up with your own recommendations on them. For example, have you successfully defended values of diversity and pluralism on a digital platform? Have you ever gone into a debate on social media where you eventually managed to convince people for the better at the end? If you belong to a minority group, how do you use social media to counterbalance the often stereotypical or negative portrayal of your own group? Have you used social media to get access to a high-level decision maker? Did you manage to get his or her attention? Did you achieve your desired results? What tools helped you to mobilize people for action? And if you're a civil servant, how does your government disseminate information about the activities on minorities? And how do you build trust with minority groups through these platforms? I would like to reassure you before we go into the discussions that we are doing our best to ensure that priority is given to those who have not spoken yet, and also to minority situations and groups that have not been yet in focus during our discussions. And with that, I will open the floor. And I look at my colleagues whether we have the speakers list at hand. Okay. So just to say, I will be strict with timing, because I know that many people could not speak yesterday because we let some of you speak for too long. So after 2 minutes, I'm cutting you. I'm sorry. So the first speaker on my list is Western Trace Minorities University Graduate Association.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Education is one of the primary means for promotion of minority media organs, participation of minority youth in public life and digital media, and survival of minority identities within majority communities. It also plays an essential role for integration of minorities, youth, without getting assimilated in dominant majority communities. Since the early 1990s, the overall level of education has been increasing among the Muslim Turkish minority youth in Western Thrace region of Greece. Nevertheless, apart from a couple of initiatives targeting primarily the improvement of titular Greek language among minority youth, fundamental problems in the realm of education of minority children persist, which not only hinders the process of inclusion of the minority youth in digital media, but also keep having negative impact on the promotion of diversity and coexistence in this part of the country. First of all, the right for bilingual education is completely absent at preschool and tertiary levels of education. Minority kids are enrolled in public nurseries where their mother language is Turkish is absent. Secondly, the number of bilingual minority schools is diminishing, but the ones who are still functioning keep having fundamental problems for decades. No Greek government has managed to solve main problems about meeting infrastructural needs and developing the overall quality of education in both Turkish and Greek curriculum at these schools. Henceforth, many minority students spending 6 years at minority bilingual schools cannot manage to read and write in both languages effectively. Their poor fluency in both languages is also reflected on usage of digital media. Thirdly, the economic crisis in Greece that has been facing since 2010 has been affecting the economic well-being and prospects of the minority youth. Henceforth, we urge Greece to solve decades-long problems regarding bilingual minority schooling and in the realm of minority media, form a platform of dialogue with the minority to solve the problems, and finally emphasize the economic improvement of the region and promote participation of young people at labor force. Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you very much. And I give the floor now to the People's Republic of China.
Mr. Moderator, Mr. Chair, China is a country of multinationality unification. We stand for ethnic unity and equality. In recent years, the undertakings, various social undertakings in China is developing, progressing forward. The political, economic, social, and cultural rights have been further protected and guaranteed. China fully respects and guarantee religious beliefs and the freedoms of religions and custom institutions and the right to use their ethnic rights for culture and literature and languages. China attaches high importance to the rights of the use of the ethnic minority groups to receive education. China has devoted special projects and established subsidies for education of minority areas and also provides subsidies and financial support for the education in those areas. There are about 10,000 schools using 29 kinds of languages belonging to 21 ethnic groups. China, according to law, protects all the rights of freedom, internet, and freedom of speech of all Chinese people, including ethnic groups. By June 2016, the internet and the netizens in China reached 710 million. For example, we have protected the rights of participate in the communication, participate in political life, and become an important platform for them to do so. At the same time, China, the youth should respect the laws and abide by the laws and promote the social security and the tranquility of the region, play the role by the youth in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to Valeria Mayer, an OECHR fellow.
Good morning, moderator. My name is Valeria Mayer. I speak on behalf of the German minority living in Russia. Both countries, Russia and Germany, are key partners in tackling issues affecting 400,000 Germans of Russians of Russian-German descent. One mechanism for supporting the German minority in Russia is the Intergovernmental Russian-German Commission on the Problems of Russian Germans. This commission oversees the efforts of both countries geared towards reviving and developing socio-economic and cultural basis of the German ethnicity in Russia. Every year the Commission notes that efforts carried out jointly by Russia and Germany, above all in the sphere of culture, work with youth, facilitate ethno-cultural development of Russian Germans. A special role here is played by information media work on the internet. Information portal of Russian Germans has been up and running for 14 years. It's become bilingual. An integral part of that portal was its sub-sites that telling stories about the culture of Russian Germans. Now, I should also note the role of the Russian-German Gazette, newspaper which updates us on events affecting Russian Germans and those from Russia and outside. The newspaper speaks of the work of federal structures, the organizations of Russian Germans, and councils on language work, and a business club for Russian Germans. We'd very much like to thank both countries, Russia and Germany, for supporting our initiatives, our projects, including in work with the media, since Russian Germans are a cultural bridge uniting Russia and Germany. Thank you.
Thank you very much, especially for keeping the time. I give the floor now to the Russian Federation.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Moderator. Very briefly, I'll just highlight a couple of problems that various minorities, religious minorities, national, ethnic, linguistic minorities face in using digital technologies. First, it's no secret that youth certainly are the main consumer of information, digital and in digital media, on social media. Youth is also one of the biggest players in terms of distributing, circulating that information through various social media and networks. Now, I guess this would be no surprise if I say that the internet and digital media provide us the opportunity both for positive information and to positively impact on lives, but also, sadly, we also have negative aspects as well that we run into on the internet. So there's the plus side and a minus side. Now, there's the possibility of it spreading negative information of radical viewpoints, extremist viewpoints, and hate speech. So on the one hand, there's a dilemma. There's the issue of freedom of expression, and also on the other side on how to restrict the spread of such information. And here we need to strike a balance, including with the participation of representatives of the various religious linguistic minorities. The second problem is that of shaping in the media, including in digital media, of negative stereotypes, and how to get media to form more positive stereotypes and perceptions. In Russia, we've for many years, since 2008, we've held a competition to encourage journalists to disseminate positive information on culture and in many other specificities of the various minorities. In that respect, we propose a recommendation that every state should oblige to give its people freedom of expression, including free access to the media. Thank you.
And the floor goes to Criolla, Brazil.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank you the chance to take the floor. My name is Lia Maria Manso Siqueira, and I represent Criolla, an NGO for the rights of Afro-descendant women in Brazil. Afro-descendant young women have achieved new tools for social change with cyber activists in social media. They have been fighting to construct a new counter-hegemonic and decolonial narrative. They talk about Afro-centered religiosity, politics, identity, criminal justice system, sexual, reproductive, social, cultural, and economic rights from their own perspective. However, internet access is not real for most Afro-descendant young women in Brazil. That is, a large part of young people who transform their communities that cannot access communal innovation, tools for advocacy in a moment of loss of rights in our country. It's essential that the Brazilian state commits itself to the democratization of the Internet as a form of social justice, recognition and redistribution for young Afro-descendant women in Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to the Jaffna Muslim Community International.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. Hold on, I just had to put my specs here. I can go very shortly here. One of the barriers which the NGOs need to overcome when working with minority youth and giving their information on media is that the NGO actors do not belong to the same minority group, and therefore they may have very different intersexual identity to the minority youth. The otherness may create differences in the relationship between the NGO and the target group. Therefore, a main role is played by gatekeepers of the NGO and by the cultural mediators between the NGO and the media and the minority youth. The intersectional approach has an impact also on the different steps in the risk management process. It goes without saying that it's extremely important to recognize the multiple discrimination against minority youth to assess their real opportunities and access to the rights, and to enhance the active participation of stakeholders to the development of the project in order to release youth at the crossroad of discrimination grounds from the traffic jam of prejudices and exclusion. This also applies to the minority youth community in Sri Lankan war conflict. So we do really hope the authorities take necessary actions to make sure the youths are not discriminated in Sri Lankan minority community. Thank you very much.
I will give the floor to the United States of America.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The United States is committed to protecting and upholding the human rights of young people around the globe and empowering youth voices to advocate for their rights. We recognize the global and open nature of the Internet as a driving force in accelerating progress towards development in its various forms, and in particular, its importance to minority youth advocacy and connectedness. The Internet and other forms of media have contributed to empowering today's youth, who are the most interconnected, well-educated, and healthiest generation in history, as noted by the Deputy High Commissioner in September 2016. The Internet is a critical tool allowing greater involvement in public and political life for minority youth, particularly as a platform for outreach and advocacy. The United States and its partners work to ensure the credible local voices opposed to violence and extremism have the tools and platforms to do their own outreach, to highlight the deceptions of violent extremist narratives, and to voice peaceful alternatives. The greatest investment a nation can make is enabling and equipping its young people to become the leaders of today and tomorrow. In recognition of the importance of this task, the United States affirms that quality education plays a decisive role in the development and encourages the promotion of digital literacy and the facilitation of access to information on the Internet, which can be an important tool in facilitating the promotion of the right to education. As the rapid pace of technological development enables individuals all over the world to use new information and communication technologies, it remains important to continue to respect human rights. The same rights that people have offline must be protected online, in particular freedom of expression, which is applicable regardless of frontiers and through any media of one's choice, in accordance with Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to Association Le Point.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Chair Lady, for allowing me to talk. I am Dr. Tegang from Southern Cameroon. The Southern Cameroon has a total population of 8 million people with a median age of 19. This makes it a youthful population with enormous potential. This potential is revealed every day through the ingenuity and outstanding performance of the Southern Cameroonian youth at home. In February 2017, the 17-year-old Njikoli Nga became the first African to win the Google Coding Challenge. This young Southern Cameroonian achieved this feat in the midst of a 3-month internet shutdown throughout the Southern Cameroon earlier this year, imposed by the government of Republic of Cameroon. 2 weeks ago, another young Southern Cameroonian, 10-year-old Stacy Fru, grabbed news headlines when he launched her second book. The town of Boya, which is the capital of Southern Cameroon, has in recent years been renowned for its cluster of IT startups. This has earned the name Silicon Mountain, allowing to the Silicon Valley in San Francisco. In fact, Boya is seat of the slopes of the majestic Mount Fako. There are numerous examples of Southern Cameroonians achieving technological breakthroughs and performing at the highest levels in arts and science. Despite this prevalent manifestation, we have seen with dismay the activity of the Yaoundé regime to bring down our system, and we hope as recommendation that this House can always try to make sure that in future youths like the Southern Cameroonian youth will also have their space to bring forth development in their own countries. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to the Yazidis Cultural Center in the Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Naudin Osman. I'm speaking on behalf of the Yazidis Cultural Center in the Netherlands. The survey has been prepared to study the situation of the Yazidi youth after the coming of ISIS and its control on Sinjar, Bahashika and Bazani on August 3, 2014. The results were shocking. The first result is the increasing number of youth who are unemployed. Most of Yazidi youth had a job before the coming of ISIS in their own cities, but now they are displaced in camps in different cities of Kurdistan without any jobs. There are about 90% of Yazidi youth without jobs now living in camps, according to the Yazidi Organization for Documentation. The second result is the bad psychological situation that most of the youth suffer from since they saw their sisters and mothers get kidnapped and raped in front of their eyes when ISIS controlled Yazidi cities. The third one is the immigration that threats the performance of Yazidi religion in Iraq. So many Yazidi youth decided to leave Iraq from 3 August 2014 until November 2017. Iraq left about 100,000 Yazidis. Most of them were young. The fourth result is Yazidi youth are suffering from the discrimination that Iraq government practices it against them. They do not get that much help from the government, and no one does anything to release the kidnapped girls who are under ISIS controls, with the exception of the support of Mr. Nechirvan Barzani, the head of the Kurdistan regional government. Fifth, Yazidi people are suffering from the lack of attention to them and to their situation. Most of families live in camps with few water and few food. They live under a high degree of heat in summer and low temperatures in the winter. Sixth, Yazidi youth are grumpy because of lack of freedom in speech and the absence of a government program to rehabilitate the children and the women who survived the grip of ISIS, in addition to the emergence of suicide.
I'm sorry. And I give you the floor now to the representative of Sudan.
شكرا جزيلا أختي العزيزة مديرة الجلسة. لك التحية.
Thank you very much, Moderator, Chair. We began yesterday by discussing the issue of education in society. I had said yesterday that education, planning, research, and the use of technology allowed us to come out of the educational crisis. And today, I would like to say that with respect to youth, in particular minority youth, and their connection to media, there is a special issue that has to be looked at. That is to say, how to use this media. We must recognize that technology is a force. But it is up to us to determine how to use that force or that strength. So if we satisfy ourselves only with the existence of the technology, we will not make much progress. However, if we put our energies into the use of that technology, then we will move ahead. And the reason is that everyone needs to make others aware of progress that can be achieved. So we need to take into consideration the needs of society so as to ensure that we can meet those needs through technology. And it is not only young people who need technology, but adults as well. The new generation must indeed equip itself with technology to move forward, but it is the responsibility of adults to ensure that they are aware of the appropriate use of such technology.
Thank you. And I give the floor now to the Collectif de Bretagne.
Merci, Madame la Modératrice.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and good morning all. The Collectif de Bretagne, the Brittany Collective, is made up of 10 young people between 20 and 27 years. We come from a region to the west of France, and it's the first time we're here in this forum. We noted that in Brittany, the media broadcasting minority language programs are overshadowed by major media corporations, and we sorely lack financial means. However, the Breton youth is very dynamic and open to the world. We can even say there's a Breton diaspora. Initiatives do exist, and one of them was headed by Morgan Lindsay. I traveled through Europe with my backpack and my video camera, trying to meet other minorities who spoke to me of innovative initiatives to revive their languages on a day-to-day basis. The result of my trip were 110 interviews, which will be broadcast on the internet free of charge in Breton, French, and English. I traveled with a view to gathering best practices. And I would like to say that minorities are not closed on themselves. I'm also present in this forum. I work in a cinema studio. We develop Breton youth programs without subtitles, which are now widely disseminated in Brittany and in schools in particular. I would like to see an international network bringing together communities which develop video programs in minority languages. There could be, for example, an exchange or co-production of audiovisual youth programs. We would like to invite the media professionals here, as well as interested delegations, to share their views with us at the end of this meeting at 1 o'clock in room 22. We would also recommend to state that they allocate greater human, technical, and financial resources to innovative minority media projects to allow them to participate in a fairer, more inclusive and diverse society as to the use of languages. We would recommend that states comply with the SDGs, in particular Goal 16, Target 7, on participations at all levels of societies. And I would like to ask a question to the panelists here. What advice can you give us to build up a more inclusive society with diverse media?
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to Anderson Micha, Commission of Churches on International Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Mitchell Anderson, and I'm here on behalf of the World Council of Churches, a fellowship of many of the world's Christians for collaboration, mutual understanding, and action for social justice. Atlante Setseni Hestli Denesuthne Gahasti. Good morning. I'm Denesuthne, and I'm proud of that. I'll highlight two common experiences for minority youth in my own Canada and throughout the world. The first is that many of us as minority youth experience intergenerational trauma, or the inherited effects of past and ongoing experiences of marginalization, oppression, and dispossession. And the second is that many of us as minority youth have an aspiration for the revitalization of our cultures, our nuhachanye, as both an individual and a collective project. By cultures, I mean at the deepest level our lifeways, ontologies, epistemologies, spiritualities, and languages. And I say revitalization rather than preservation because our cultures are living. Storytelling is a powerful way of both addressing intergenerational trauma and of revitalizing cultures. New media and digital technologies provide powerful and valuable tools for storytelling for minority youth. To this end, I have 3 recommendations. The first is that this forum celebrate and encourage the work of minority youth to engage in the ongoing work of addressing intergenerational trauma and the revitalization of our cultures for new contexts and in our time through storytelling and digital media. The second is that this forum call on civil society, including arts and cultural groups, businesses, and communities of faith, to support the work of minority youth and cultural revitalization through providing space, resources, and engaging in self-transformation to be more inclusive minority youth and our stories. And the third is that this forum call on governments, including educational systems, cultural funding organizations, and public broadcasters, to fund and make space for the digital media work of minority youth. Together, we can build more inclusive societies where no one is left behind. Marcy Cho, thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you for providing recommendations, for proposing concrete actions, and for keeping the time today. You're making my job very easy, so I really appreciate it. And the next speaker is the representative of Austria.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator, and welcome back to you to the Minority Forum, to which you have contributed so greatly over the past years. This year, a 16-year-old student in Austria created the first hijab-wearing emoji icon, which was approved by the Unicode Consortium and is now available on iPhones. This is just a small example, but I think it nicely shows how young people can contribute to better represent the diversity of our societies in digital media. Answering to your question, on some of your questions, Madam Moderator, yes, Austria is trying to use digital media, for example, in the field of education. We have developed an online platform offering ready-to-use sets of instruction material to make it easier for teachers to take up diversity and integration at their schools. And we also proactively promote cultural diversity and inclusion in our media, awarding for years already an annual Journalists' Prize for Integration to journalists who contribute to promoting better understanding for the beauty of diversity in our society. Let me conclude by giving one recommendation, or by offering one recommendation from the forum. States should proactively promote cultural diversity, inclusion and education and tolerance in cooperation with all types of media, including digital media, to disseminate information about minority rights, address disinformation, and to give voice to minorities' concerns and views. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor now to Pro Regio Siculorum Association.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Pro Regio Siculorum Association was founded with the purpose of addressing the problems faced by the Hungarian community in Romania, to draw attention to the violation of their linguistic and cultural rights, and the various forms of ethnic discrimination that they face. Hate speech has been particularly pervasive in Romania this year, both on social media and on mainstream television, where journalists, social media influencers, opinion makers, and some Romanian politicians expressing extremist views propagated nationalistic messages directed against the Hungarian community. It is not uncommon, for instance, that talk shows and news programs purposely misrepresent information about the Hungarian minority, which can have very damaging effects. For example, in June, a set of legislative proposals meant to increase the linguistic rights of minorities in Romania were eventually not adopted in Parliament, due in great part to a nationalistic media campaign conducted by several news channels. Sadly, when media platforms are used in such a corrosive way as a means to promoting hate speech, they can have a very wide-reaching effect, turn public opinion against a minority community, and do great damage to peaceful inter-ethnic relations. Our organization submitted complaints to the National Council for Anti-Discrimination and the National Audiovisual Council of Romania against those who publicly voice anti-Hungarian messages. But how can we make sure in the long run that digital media and media in general is a force for good and not used as a platform for hate speech? First of all, in the digital age, minority youth can play a huge part in promoting positive messages about their respective communities. Many Hungarian youth organizations, as well as some human rights organizations led by minority youth, have done great work recently in promoting Hungarian language and culture on digital media, but also minority rights in general. Secondly, states have to be more decisive in combating hate speech. While regulatory institutions and the reactive work that they do is helpful and important, it is not enough. States have to be more proactive. Just like minority communities themselves, governments can also and must promote positive images about minorities in order to address the root causes of racism and hate speech, which is the lack of knowledge about the history and the culture of minorities.
Your time is up.
Therefore, we believe...
Your time is up, but the statement will be all posted. I will give the floor now to Association Tendral. Are you in the room? Association Tendral from India.
Hello. Thank you, Chairman. Elam Tamil youths living under Sri Lankan regime consistently facing oppression, state violence. Tamil Elam being occupied by around 200,000 strong Sri Lankan military and is almost 100% ethnic Sinhalese. Since the mainstream media are censored and controlled by the state, youths turn to social media. But the social media presence too affects the safety and security of the Tamil youths as the social media accounts are being monitored. The youths who expressing their views contrary to the state are being investigated by the security forces. Last year, 2 Tamil youth students were shot and killed by Sri Lankan military, and they were shot and killed because they didn't stop when they asked. Yesterday, 30th November 2017, the intelligence operatives of this occupying Sinhala military have started to harass youths and their families in the Tamil land after they braved the hindrances by the Sri Lankan military against commemorating Tamil Elam war heroes on November 27. Sri Lankan military intelligence operatives were tracing cell phone and social media posts that have taken place among the participants during the self-mobilized Heroes Day. Elam Tamil youths are being sidelined, harassed, intimidated in their homeland in Sri Lanka. Mr. President, the collective punishment meted out against the Elam Tamil youths in the occupied territories ruin the basic rights of Tamil youths, including the right to safety life. The international community failed to protect 147,000 Tamils from genocide. Unfortunately, we have lately seen member states weaken their resolve to put pressure on Sri Lanka to respect international law for have regime change in the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give now the floor to the representative of Azerbaijan.
I would like to share with you good practice of Azerbaijan in creating favorable conditions for national minorities for effective using media. The Article 47 of the Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan says that everyone may enjoy freedom of thought and speech. In accordance with this article, the representatives of national minorities may freely express their opinions on various issues, including issues related to themselves. There is no restriction to internet and other forms of digital communication in Azerbaijan. According to the statistic, in 2016, there were 77 internet users per each 100 persons in the country. Article 2, paragraph 4 of the Declaration of the Rights of Persons Belonging to National or Ethnic, Religious and Linguistic Minorities says that persons belonging to minorities have the right to establish and maintain their own associations. In accordance with the article, the Azerbaijani government created necessary conditions for national minorities to establish and maintain their own associations. There are many organizations and national cultural centers of national minorities functioning in Azerbaijan. These organizations play an important role in solution of socio-economic and cultural issues of national minorities and in their integration in the society. Some of these organizations of national minorities have their newspapers and journals to be published in their languages. Also, presently there is radio broadcasting in Kurdish, Lezgin, Talysh, Georgian, Russian and Armenian languages. Thus, freedom of speech and thought in Azerbaijan create favorable conditions for effective using media by national minorities to disseminate information about their rights. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to the International Council for Secular Bangladesh. Are you here? International Council for Secular Bangladesh? Okay, then I will jump to Indikum Ransom Dikum from the Geneva Academy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am Dikum Ransom. I'm a barrister at law and a current master fellow at the Geneva Academy. I'm a member of the Ambazonia International Policy Commission, and I throw my voice behind Dr. Etega Bernadette to talk on behalf of Southern Cameroonians. I am a youth and a right advocate for the marginalized minority fraction of Southern Cameroonians of English extraction in Cameroon. We have for the past 56 years been treated as second-class citizens with the assimilation of the English culture in favor of the French culture. It is thanks to the digital media and the engagement of youth in the same that the marginalization and assimilation of the minority Anglophones was brought to the face of the world. In Cameroon, there is freedom of speech, of course, but there's no freedom after speech. And this is in gross violation of international treaties. Young journalists, lawyers, and rights advocates are constantly being persecuted, arbitrarily arrested, and detained without due process. The government has sporadically shut down internet as part of the crackdown on minority Anglophones at the wake of the Anglophone crisis since October 2016, which has grounded activities in the entire southern Cameroon with an indefinite strike action declared by the common law lawyers and teachers, which is still ongoing, and southern Cameroonians have been termed terrorists, dogs, government officials on state media by government officials. The crisis has led to many deaths of Anglophones, including mostly the youths, which is at its apex now, and some scholars and activists have been quick to term it a genocide or a crimes against humanity on the Anglophone minority, and I see reasons with them. Kofi Annan once said, genocide begins with the killing of one person, not because of what he has done, but because of who he is. The internet shutdown in southern Cameroon early this year that lasted for 3 months, according to the Internet Without Borders group, costed business in southern Cameroon.
I'm sorry. And I will give the floor now to the Association for the Human Rights of the Azerbaijani People in Iran.
L'épanouissement et le développement des jeunes issus des minorités.
The development and the flourishing of minority youths are closely connected to their social inclusion. Similarly, inclusive education is in line with an anti-racist priority and is important for all minority youth, taking into account the value of difference as a teaching tool, promoting equal opportunities and the equal value of all is something that must be promoted in the national education of Iran. In educational services, the inclusion of all social segments must be a priority and must include minorities. New technologies, internet and social media, and digital tools must be used to access rights and different national and international institutions. However, this is very limited and restricted, particularly for minorities. Minority women are not visible in the media. Moreover, the Islamic Republic often uses the media against the culture of these Azerbaijani youth. These young people are therefore doubly discriminated against by their ethnic nationality and their culture. Today, the language teaching is a problem in the national education services, and this puts these minority youths in an awkward position and slows down their social progress. We recommend that Iran include in its program and its declaration on education up to 2030 a provision to provide access to all to education on an equal footing and to provide for training throughout one's life. We recommend that minorities have their own media to highlight their culture and their tradition.
And I promised to our panelists to give them the floor at mid-time so they can react to your recommendations, to your questions. I'm looking at Marina, Anju, Jonathan. Who is ready to start? Okay, Marina.
First, thank you very much to participant forums for sharing your experiences. I've learned a lot from you. And here we heard a question from the colleagues, how to effectively use media to build a more inclusive society, if I understood your question correctly. Now, before answering, I want to take the opportunity to thank the High Commissioner on Human Rights for the recent 36th session of the Human Rights Council. He voiced concerns with the problems of persecution of journalists in Moldova, but notwithstanding those problematic issues, I want to share good examples also from Moldova on issues, on the question that you asked, on how to use the media to build a more inclusive society. First, the Coordination Council on TV radio broadcasting in Moldova launches a number of grant programs each year to produce TV programs in minority languages. Of course, those grants aren't that big, but still, it's a small but important step in supporting minority media. Sadly, the site of that council is only accessible in the state language, the website of the. I hope it'll be more inclusive in the future. Second example on how to use media to build a more inclusive society. Here's a good practice by the UN Office on Human Rights in Moldova. This year, that office conducted a Human Rights Academy for journalists from different TV, radio stations, media in Moldova. It's very important for journalists who represent the majority should know what the standards are when it comes to minority rights, and that when they talk of any reform, they should have consultations with minorities. A third very important point, a good practice here, again from Moldova. In my statement I said that members of the youth group of Interethnic Solidarity participated in an internship of the Moldovan UN Office on diversity, and it's great that the example of the Moldova office was followed by a number of private companies. Thanks to that, for example, young journalists from the Roma community did internships in a number of top media companies in Moldova and were then employed by them subsequently. And the last bit of good practice I want to share with you. You said that you make documentary films. I too I do the same thing. A good practice for journalists from the countries in the Eastern Partnership is an initiative of the Adami Media Prize. That was initiated by the Foreign Ministry of Germany, Adami Media Prize. It trains journalists on how to produce documentary films on the themes of diversity, and each year there's a prize for the best, there are awards for the best. I think that practice deserves to be replicated in other countries.
Marian, and also for inspiring us and giving us the good examples. I think we always need them, and it was really good to listen to this. Anju, are you ready?
Sorry. Just to add, we should provide more access and safe space to minorities on online spaces. Just an example, as here I am talking about the backlash and bad trolling. My co-panelist or my friend just now getting trolling her, back-trolling her, harassing her, sexual harassing and attacking her. So this is the this kind of challenges we face every day on these online spaces. So I have some recommendations to made. Security training to provide oneself from sexual harassment and trolling, access to language and technology, and online network to share information about local struggle and build solidarity globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Anju. Jonathan?
To add here, I think one of the issues we faced when we were a younger company was the issue with funding. So in the United States, for entrepreneurs or anyone building something, most of the funding is not allocated to people of color. So the statistics are fairly dismal as far as what your survival rate will be like in a media landscape that is generally overrun by larger entities. So one of the focuses we had was around building community first. So our thought was that if we were able to reach people that we knew, that they would know other people. And so our strength was that other people started sharing who we were long before any investors or anyone sort of externally came into the business. I think that's a useful model in places where there are barriers to resources, whether that be financial or social. The community you are a part of, if you can build trust there first, there's generally other people in other parts of the world, and that's what we found, that the kinds of entryways and even the kinds of traffic we were getting were directly correlated to the kinds of stories we were writing. And so we started to see traffic spike from other places in the diaspora, which allowed us to actually get further and grow faster than a lot of people that were entrenched media companies. So I think for anyone that's thinking about building an enterprise or thinking about what inclusion looks like, the question is, what community am I a part of, and where do I feel like I can have the most impact given the work I'm already doing?
Thank you very much. I think what you are saying is very important, because there are indeed a lot of minorities who don't hold power in society. Like, they lack economic power, they lack political power or media power. And I think building critical mass and mobilizing communities is one of the key response to these challenges. And I do hope that you will be able to use the Minority Forum for that. And I really encourage the minority youth to build that critical mass and to use this venue also for you to reach out to others and to kind of build a coalition for your cause, because the more the merrier, and of course the stronger we can be, the better, the more we can achieve. And with that, I would go back to the speakers list, and I promise that I would give the floor to those who have been underrepresented, who have not spoken. And I have several Coptic organizations on my list, so I will give it to the Canadian Coptic Activist Association, and if we have time at the end, I will of course give it to other groups as well. Please go ahead.
Thank you, dear Mr. Chairman and attendees. Good morning. My name is Dr. Hani Shenouda. I am an Egyptian Canadian. I represent and have the honor of being the president of the Canadian Coptic Activist Federation. In the respect of the time constraint, I'll be very brief. It is obvious from multiple speakers here that there is some reluctance of some countries to adopt concepts of diversity and otherness, and this has caused obviously unspeakable difficulties to different minorities, including youth minorities. Sadly, the failure to acknowledge diversity, specifically in the Middle Eastern area countries, led to erosion of rights of youth and minorities in general. Widening concern for promotion and protecting minorities' communities is currently woven in the fabric of current world affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, we should endeavor to find ways to persuade governments and heads of states to implement measures to ensure civil liberties and human rights and equality for better future, enlightenment, peace, harmony, and consequently prosperity. Since the inception of the High Commission of Human Rights in 2006, periodic evaluation of the human rights records of the United Nations member countries and issuance of specific recommendations are disseminated, followed by periodic reviews of these recommendations' implementations. My recommendation is rather a plead with the Commission to create logistically, cultural and economical...
I am sorry. I will give the floor now to the International Council Supporting Fair Trial and Human Rights.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. My organization appreciates the work of the Human Rights Council, of the High Commissioner, of the Special Rapporteur for Minorities and minority participants at this forum. In a number of countries in the Gulf, minorities are excluded and discriminated against. Their rights and freedoms are violated for various reasons: gender, policy, religious, social status. In addition to this, youth and minority are denied access to social networks where they would have the opportunity to express their opinions and participate in public affairs. Sadly, often they are castigated or imprisoned. For example, there are cases in Saudi Arabia. Shiite, Christian, marginal children, those from minorities are denied participation in public life, in the police. They're not allowed to enter the police, the foreign ministry, or any entity that would give them give the right to those youth to contribute it and manage the national wealth. We speak here of the right to full citizenship, have full representative participation in parliaments, etc. Their beliefs, their creeds, their rituals are disdained. For example, Shiites, the creeds are violated. For example, when they speak on social networks, many say that they've been victims of injustice. For example, if we refer to the judicial power of Kuwait, has always been absolved, has always discriminated against Shiites, and who've spoken on it's a violation of constitutional and international declarations. I'd also like to make a call in the case of Colombia. Following the signing of the peace accords, there have been over 180 assassinations, many indigenous, the majority of them are youth. So I would kindly ask this council to receive support from the Special Rapporteur to condemn, repudiate, and to stand up out against those governments and those assassinations, and call on the Colombian government and other countries mentioned like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait to...
Association in the room? You are there. The floor is yours.
Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Noureddin Bisadi, and I belong to the Amazigh people of Algeria. I came here with the Swedish Institute of Alexandria. In Algeria, despite the recognition of Amazigh as an official language in 2016, nothing has been done to promote its use in the public space. It is clear that things have not changed at all, and one has to note that it is still a false recognition. To make things move forward, the Algerian government has to implement this recognition and to make it effective. And this cannot be done without the promotion of the use of Amazigh language in the public space, especially on internet. Therefore, I have two main recommendations. The first one is that the opportunity has to be given to the Amazigh youth to express themselves in their mother tongue on internet. The Algerian government should provide the necessary means to significantly promote this language and to make it possible for its speakers to fully enter the digital age through internet. Currently, speakers of Amazigh language in Algeria suffer from a real digital divide that must be addressed urgently by the government. The second recommendation is that we must fight against the hate speech that is targeting the minority youth on media, especially on social media in Algeria. Hate speech against all minorities is widespread on internet, and nothing is being done to address the issue. On Facebook, for example, speakers of minority languages may face greater harm related to online abuse because their reports are rejected or the reporting mechanism is not in their language. The Algerian government has to set up a strategy to fight against hate speech, especially on social media, and authors of racist discourse must be punished. Thank you very much.
Thank you also for the recommendations and keeping your time. I will give the floor now to ACFA's Human Rights Organization.
سيدتي الرئيسة، سيداتي سادة الحضور، أسعدتم صباحا. أنا علي حيدري، ناشط من منظمة حقوق الإنسان الأهوازية من الأغلية العربية في إيران.
From the Human Rights Council, from the Azawid minority. Now, our organization has played a role in the political life there's been developments in terms of the internet and on media platforms such as Facebook, which has allowed us, organizations like ourselves, to participate in public life, and it's allowed the Awazid to express their opinions on political issues, and whereas before minorities were marginalized. However, the authorities have intimidated such persons. A number of people have been arrested and have been put in prison for disseminating Arab culture. There's been a change in the mode of the way politics is run. We're no longer in a circle of silence in the media, and we now seek to have a voice in order to redress or to have a better narrative of our history. Therefore, the participation in the public space isn't uniquely reflected as in participation in elections. It's not just that. In fact, there needs to be a capacity to truly participate in the public, in the Iranian public space, and there is a gap between the policy and the Awazi minority. Arab activists aren't allowed to participate in elections or in the political affairs. The government controls the media very strictly, and it tracks, it even spies on telegrams, monitors them. There's no good interaction between Iranian policy and young Arabs.
The floor is given to the Sabi and Mandaean Association in Australia.
Thank
you, President. I'd like to thank the President. My organization is we are one of the oldest religions, one of the most ancient religions. And it goes back thousands of years, and it goes to King Ben Zakaria and the Prophet, and with there's people receive baptisms in the river. We are Iranians, Semites in fact. Their number stands at 60,000 throughout the world. In the south of Iran and Iraq they're located. However, a number of people have had to emigrate. In recent years they've gone to Scandinavia or they've gone to New Zealand. Recently many of them have suffered abduction, murder, they've been rape. And there are some today in Turkey, in Syria and other places. Many of them have been killed by the Islamic State, by Daesh, and other groups in Turkey, Lebanon, Egypt, Indonesia and Syria. They don't have the right to financial support and they are denied education or participation in other cultural activities. Moderator, we would like to consider the question of my people to be allowed to return to their homes, because they are in countries, in third countries, and resources need to be provided to them in education, health.
And I'm giving the floor now to a student from Thailand who represents LSE, the London School of Economics.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. I am Fitra Jewa, representing the Malay Muslim youth from Pattani, the southern border provinces of Thailand. In Thailand, minority youth have access to the social media thanks to the government and our private sector that works on improvement of technology, the internet, and the internet quality. But one critical problem that our young people have been facing is the backlash that they receive whenever they generate discussion relating to politics and human rights violation cases that they have witnessed. Their Facebook posts and photos will be repeatedly used for discrimination and accusation. For example, accusing for being national traitors and separatists. In some cases, the victim have reported to the police, but no investigation is conducted, and this might be a form of discrimination. I think if the state doesn't try to understand and tolerate diversity of political views, and if the state doesn't try to welcome discussions with minority youth, it would be difficult to mobilize inclusive development of the country. So I would like to ask our special rapporteur and also state representative here, how can we ensure security of young people who would like to be part of discussion in the media? And also my last point is that building a coalition between minority youth is not enough. For a long-term solution, we should also aim to reach out to the majority youth to foster a correct understanding about minority people from conflict area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I give now the floor to Direction aux Affaires Savoisiennes.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, President. Savoy was the last territory colonized by France in 1860. All our rights acquired by an international treaty were suppressed over years and through wars. Our history was deleted from schools in 1919. Our language is forbidden. The first names of our non-French sounding ancestors are forbidden. Our children cannot continue our traditions in the land of human rights. I have three questions for our youth and future generations regarding social networks. How can we encourage large groups such as Facebook to include minority languages when you say that 10 languages monopolize 90% of conversations, to facilitate access to languages not taught by our respective states? Regarding countries, how can these states be encouraged to recognize minorities in order to obtain from them the right to the mother tongue? Finally, the right of a minority to its language, its history, its culture, its recognition, are they contrary to the constitution of a state when it recognizes only one people on its territory? I thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to Tourner La Page Association. Are you here? Okay, if you're not here, I will give the floor now to Ahl Haq Hassan Society from Iraq. Okay.
سيد رئيس المؤتمر المحترم.
Thank you, President of the conference, moderator, ladies and gentlemen, members of NGOs, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sabah Ayeki, director of the KKKN Association in Germany. I belong to the ancient Kurdish religion, and this is not an Aryan branch. Rather, it's a wealth and a traditional wealth in our culture. Now, these are people whose history goes more than 5,000 years. The majority live in Iran and Iraq. Now, the KKN religion is at risk of disappearance for a number of reasons, including non-recognition as a independent religion. The Sayani and the KKN, throughout their history, have not been recognized by the authorities. Our rituals were not recognized. There were attempts to delete all trace of our doctrine, and this following the direct threats, intimidation. with a view to... there's been destruction of our villages, and hundreds have migrated to Europe for fear of genocide otherwise. Many were killed on the basis of their identity. Their women were raped, their blood flowed abroad, and but they preserved the rites, the rituals, and the doctrine. But the Europeans do not recognize our rights.
Floor now to Ibrahim Makarios, Swedish Institute, Alexandria.
Your Excellencies, thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Makarios Al-Qomos. I am a Coptic lawyer and activist working on minority issues in Egypt. We, minority youth, believe that digital media is not just a tool to express ourselves and raise our concerns, but sometimes it is the only tool available for us. Publication bans, blocking websites, and the Egyptian NGOs law are a bunch of new governmental procedures. For minorities, these procedures are not just a limitation of effective access to digital media, it is an isolation. We have also witnessed security tracking and privacy breach for youth who posted, shared, commented or liked on Facebook, especially those who belong to minorities. We understand the challenges that the Egyptian government faces during its war against terrorism. However, respect of human rights cannot be a second priority. We stress on the fact that our voices and participations are part of the solution. Therefore, I have two recommendations. First, changing the current NGOs law that limits our participation in public life and digital media. Second, reconsider the strict policy towards this participation of youth on digital media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would give the floor now to Asociazione Made in Trieste. Are you here?
Yes. Dear President and honorable members, my name is Elia, I'm 13 years old and I come from Trieste. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm here before you to express my opinion, hoping that this will be heard, and together with the thoughts and proposals given here today by boys and girls, we can make a contribution to our future. In my city where I was born and raised, I met a young immigrant boy the same age as me, and I was saddened to see how he was not helped by the adults or institutions of my city to become a part of our society. If I had to emigrate with my family to a new nation, I would like to be given the opportunity immediately to have access to an education that will help me learn the language. I would not like to be sent to a new school without having any possibility to express myself and to make myself understood. Being able to communicate with my new classmates will give me the opportunity to know their habits and opinions. It will give me the chance to understand new uses and customs, to know what my rights are, but also my duties. If I am unable to communicate with my classmates, I will feel embarrassed and excluded. This is my second year at the Minority Forum. I've heard a lot about the rights of the adults. I hope that starting from this Youth Minority Forum, you will begin to talk about our social and cultural rights. We deserve your respect because we are the hope and promise for future humanity. You must understand that young people like me are the building blocks, and our job is not to create material objects, but to grow into responsible adults of tomorrow, and you and more our humanity. We would like to become the future that we would like to see. We ask you to help make us become the change that you would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it is the pleasure now to give back the floor to our chairman, who have a few words to say.
Thank you very much. In fact, I just would like to raise my hand in respect for the youngest participant in this forum, the last speaker, who is only 13 years old, and he participated for the second year, and he made a wonderful speech. We are here for you, young man.
Thank you, our Chairman. And I would give the floor now to Azar Taherabadi, who is a journalist from the Islamic Republic of Iran. You are there, okay.
Okay. فلکت این کار کی بود عزیزم؟ مال من بود، مال شما نبود. مال من بود مال من بود عزیزم. بله. Okay. Sorry,
Do we have a confusion, or are you good to go? You have a disagreement between you?
Can you put the microphone, please? We can't hear
Can't hear you. Put the microphone.
You against the organization name?
It was a name of the journalist, Azar Taherabadi.
Oh.
That's you. All right. So please go ahead, and sorry.
Thank you for time. Hello everyone. I'm Azar Taherabadi, journalist and human rights of Iran. I think we have gone wrong way. My country is under communication and media sanctions imposed by some Western countries, and Iran cannot freely communicate in some fields. We talk about the right of the minority to freely communicate with the world. For example, the Western countries have banned Iran using some application and some other fascicles. Thank you for time.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we give the floor to the representative of Romania.
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. It is a privilege to address to you. Romanian institutions during the last couple of years have conducted some important projects related to the sensibilization of journalists towards minorities and minorities issues, and as well as some concrete steps were taken to against hate speech on the public field. I believe that these projects will be continued, and we will take our focus for the next couple of years to follow, to take some more concrete actions on this respect. I strongly encourage the NGOs represented here today on the behalf of the Hungarian community as well and other minorities from Romania to continue to address their concerns to the specific institutions of Romania, namely the National Council for Combating Discrimination, and on my behalf I will urge the other competent authorities to take further steps against such cases, but also some concrete actions to prevent such situations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will give the floor to the Association de Gunei.
There we go. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, absence of education in mother tongue is now the single most important factor to prove that there is no foundation in the Islamic Republic of Iran for empowerment of the youth, but clearly we need to know that too, that the Iranian authorities have systematically been harsh on minorities, and one of the other important attacks of the Iranian authorities on minorities is the absence of appropriate media. Imagine 13 million Azerbaijanis are not being allowed to have a real media on the protection of their environment, on the preservation of their culture, on recording their ethnographic heritage, and so on. There are no independent medias to offer check and balance on official publications. There is no effective legislation to ban the discrimination against South Azerbaijanis on economical, political, cultural, and social spheres. The Iranian authorities are implementing the policy of fooling Turks in medias and are even attacking the resilience of our communities. We all might heard or know that the access to social medias in Iran is still banned, and those who oppose against this will face the prison term. Lastly, I would like to mention the statement of our needs. We need the campaign by international community to demand the Iranian authorities to respect multiculturalism in a verifiable manner. To demand that South Azerbaijanis must be able to set up their own medias to promote their Azerbaijani-Turkish culture. Stop the persecution of activists and stop the harassment of their families because of just social media's activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to Ezetino Tridaonara. I apologize. It's from Italy. And maybe you can tell me how you pronounce it correctly.
Dear Mr. President and honorable members, I am Patrizio Miatello, President Ezelino Daonara Association from Venice, Italy. I wish to thank all you for opportunity that is being granted to our association Ezelino by allowing us to give voice to the 205,000 victims of the colossal mass fraud ever realized against saving of the two ex-Venetian popular banks. The liquidation of the Veneto Banca and Banca Popolare di Vicenza that has zeroed all of the saving of hundreds of thousands of families for a loss of 10 billion euros. There are dramatic stories of people that have been unable to withstand the loss and have killed themselves. This situation is extremely dangerous. Only our association has saved...
Excuse me. I think... Hello? I'm afraid that, this is absolutely, completely different from the subject that we are discussing, and we would like to come up with recommendations for the future of the youth. So please, we would like to maintain and adhere to the topic under discussion. This has nothing to do with this topic. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Then I will jump on the list to the next speaker, who will be the Interregional Charity Civil Society Organization Volga Migration.
Уважаемые дамы и господа,
ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you on behalf of our human rights organization, which works in 18 different federal districts in Russia. We would like to say that we will try to stick to our time and provide specific recommendations to youth. First of all, when speaking about youth education, it's essential to develop proper programs to enable studies in each different state. In particular, it is essential for youth to know the state language and to train them to respect the cultures and traditions of the state in which they live, or to which they have come due to crises, and this includes people amongst migrant communities. We have been developing programs on a presidential grant to support minorities in these federal districts. Our aim is not only to provide education, but also to hold educational projects in the area of the local traditions and ethnic languages. In the Russian Federation, minorities will know the state language, the laws, and the cultures of the state and the different communities in that state. And if they are taught in this way, they will be better able to integrate into society. I would also like to recommend to UN representatives that they continue to work in this direction. We respect your work, but we would like you to pay attention to the situation of Christians and Yazidis.
I'm giving the floor now to the Yassa Kurdish Center for Studies and Legal Consultancies.
Okay. Thank you, Madam. Sir Chairman, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Sir President, first I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Yassa about the Kurdish minority in Syria. Our organization, Yassa, is the Kurdish Center for Legal Studies and Consultancy. We advocate the rights of the estimated 3 million Kurds in Syria. Ladies and gentlemen, minorities around the world suffer from a huge lack of an international communication and understanding of their each specific problems and issues, not only because of political oppression, but also because of digital divide. Simple questions like, who are the Kurds, where do they live, why are they treated differently in their homelands, and what are their needs? Those questions cannot be answered fairly and appropriate on international level. An example is the suffering story of Kurds in Syria, like the census that took place in 1962. Suddenly, more than 150,000 Kurds became stateless in their own homeland. Those people and their descendants, the so-called Maktums, which is the Arabic word for unknown, lost thereby their basic civil rights within the Syrian society, including rights to education, participation and co-determination, but also the right to have access to internet and digital media. The Maktums were also excluded by law from the acquisition of the Syrian citizenship. Why did not this suffering story have been communicated on international level? More than 50 years later, there are still Maktums in Syria, Kurdish Yas, that suffer the same problems like their parents. They are stateless, their language and culture are still prohibited, not only on education level, but also in the classic media. Those people are excluded from holding public office fairly. They don't have equal rights like the Arabic majority in Syria. We would like to suggest...
Your time is up. You can post your statement on the website, but your time is up. I'm sorry. And I give the floor to Head Tech Foundation from Bangladesh.
Sorry.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Good to go.
Dear participations, heartiest thanks to the organization for giving opportunity to the share my knowledge. I'm the role of media to keep peace in minority in Bangladesh. You know, by the passage of time, technology improved and invented many ways to communications. Social media is the last editions of this RASP invention. Social media is an important way to communication is developed would as well as Bangladesh. Actually not only for the communication but also many purposes social media is using nowadays. It become a part of daily life. Blog, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, all are social media. Although all people of our country cannot access in the internet, who access, they use social media usually. Social media is spreading rapidly in our country. All classes, all ages, people and use it. That's why this is huge impact of it in our society. Social media affected our personal, social, national life in different times. In 2013, its impact was more than ever. Two important issues of last year, such as Shabak movement and the attack on Ramu's Buddhist, was notable. Also, this year, the Gaibanda. This took place by one of the most popular social media, Facebook. So it is also working as an strategic actor in our society. You know, the Ramu attack, the Facebook post and devastating of the minority groups, like especially Buddhism. The internet.
Excuse me, your time is up. I give the floor now in the hope that we can finish our speakers list today to the European Union of Coptic Organizations for Human Rights.
السيد رئيس المنتدى.
Excellent President, allow me to speak on behalf of the Copts of Europe. I have come to represent the Coptic minority that is the victim of systematic discrimination in Egypt against a peaceful group. Education has got a vital role in creating a new way of thinking to address problems of racial discrimination, but what's happening in Egypt is coupling general education and religious education, which led to the corruption of the educational system and barred the Copts from participating. For example, in the book, the rules of the non-Muslims, which is taught, are
this is about the media, and let us please adhere to the topic of discussion and use appropriate language. Please, I appeal to you to stick to the topic, which is media, and use appropriate language. Thank you.
I believe, Mr. President, that all of those who spoke about me spoke about many problems, and none of them spoke about media, but I'm the only one that you have interrupted me. Thank you very much. This has happened with us before, and it happens today. I believe that the United Nations is the party responsible for protecting the rights of minorities in the world, and we have come here to speak about our problems. We are not wrongly accusing anybody of anything. I haven't used one single word against the state of Egypt or Islam. I have got evidence here with me. Why did you interrupt me? You interrupted me yesterday. We are in a free forum, and we should be able to make our viewpoints known. Where shall we go? We come here, and you are the president of a forum for human rights, but I believe, sir, that you are not believing in human rights, and I object to the way that you have managed this meeting yesterday and today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I will give the floor now to Dim Foundation for Humanitarian Relief. Foundation, are you around? Please, the floor is yours.
شكرا.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. My name is Hadi Jordo Ali from Iraq, from Sinjara, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Dimdim Humanitarian Relief Agency. When there are many problems that are obstructing the participation of youth in practical life in a manner that is commensurate with what is required, then you find youth finding themselves moving in another direction. The Yazidi minority is suffering because of a number of problems that are beyond counting. However, they refused to stand away from the information technology revolution, despite the many problems that they face economically and psychologically. They continue with their lives. Over 3 years they have been in camps of displacement. They have been displaced inside their country. And now when I speak of the Yazidi minority, I'm speaking about a minority, 75% of whom are displaced in camps as a result of ISIL having occupied their areas. And the city of Sinjar and its surrounding areas. And despite the suffering sustained by the Yazidi youth at the hands of Daesh, ISIL, they remain steadfast, and they proved their existence through social media, and they worked to clarify incidents and what was happening. They have voiced their suffering, and they transmitted this suffering to the world. There was an attempt, yet that was their attempt, but they do not have the institutions that represent them. They had to use social media to express their suffering and their pain. I have a message from the youth of the Yazidis that I address to the whole world.
Kabe Yamak Avanad. Are you here? Kabil Yamak Avanad from Algeria.
Zidan Lafdal from Kabylia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to give us a chance. Thanks to give us a chance to say some words that are burning our Kabylian hearts. I was afraid to do not have this chance today because what happened yesterday. We are here to discuss about minority issues, so I will present here some Kabylia issues and big problems. Before to start, I want just to give a comment. So first issue, I guess, this is the case for all of us here. Almost all of us, we are not minorities, we are minorized. So this is different. Kabylia is 12 million people, 40,000 kilometers square. Kabylia is bigger than 60% of the countries in the United Nations in terms of population, and it's larger than 30% of countries in the United Nations in terms of territory. So Kabylia has its own territory, it has her own culture, her own language, her own people. So you understand, we are not a minority, we are minorized. Now let's discuss about the issues. There are many issues to say, but let's limit to the topic of today, which is the media. So not far from this week, the Algerian Parliament decided to do not promote our mother tongue native language, even though it's written as being a national and official language in the Constitution. So this what is written in the Constitution is just to fool, but it's not the real case about being our mother tongue language to be really officially. It's not the case. So they put it in the Constitution just in order to stop the...
Your time is up. Your time is up. I'm sorry. And thank you very much. I'm sorry. Your time is up. And I give the floor now to the Yazidi Foundation of Iraq.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, I am a representative called Hasso Hormi, and I'll speak very quickly about the role of youth to promote culture through various media. This diversity encompasses a number of linguistic and religion groups in one of the most ancient countries of the Middle East, which has a lot of diversity, and diversity was always a factor of strength over generations. We have contributed to world culture, but recently we have been gradually depleted by acts of genocide that has been perpetrated by Daesh and the like extremist groups. Not only their culture sustained sufferings like the Kakais, like the Turkomans, like the Yazidis, like the Baha'is and others, but even their civilizational heritage was under attack. Their churches, their temples and their holy places. In Baghdad at the beginning of this month, the month of November, Saad Saloum, an academic and one of the people active who was threatened that he is going to be killed unless he stops supporting the minority youth. And from this forum we would like to associate ourselves for all of those who have defended diverse religions and who have condemned the acts of threats. Let me also take the opportunity and say that we have played a great role in instrumenting the media to expose the crimes of Daesh, ISIL, and we call upon the international community to lend attention to the Yazidi youth. Mr. Barzani, the president of Kurdistan, founded an office for survivors, but we have not seen any international support, and this is something that we find extremely difficult to understand. Thank you.
And I understand that there was a confusion, and we do apologize. So I will call again the Association for the Human Rights of the Azerbaijani People of Iran from Norway, because I think that they have not spoken yet. So please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to take this valuable opportunity to reflect part of the voice of the tens of millions of the Azerbaijani Turks living in Iran. In the front line of the awakening movement to defend and advocate for our ethnic and linguistic rights stand volunteer youth who use every diverse means in the media and digital world. They have proved to be successful in dissemination of information and mobilization of resources better than many other organizations. The main challenges seem to be how information can be reached out to other sides and the mainstream international community and media. Here, there is huge a gap. What is known to us is that there are a lot of unbelievable numerous piece of information, news and historical happening from minority in Iran, about which mainstream international community and media is unaware. However, education in minority language is forbidden in the Iranian official educational system. There is no language academy to protect and maintain or assimilated mother language, which has been left completely unprotected. This is also applies to our identity, which has been inhumanly denied and offended by the official mainstream bureaucracy. Adaptation of official educational system to accommodate minority language, respect and acceptance of their own identity and culture seems to be far away from today's reality and contemporary Iran. We can only dream about this, as well as human rights education from a young age seem to be unrealistic in Iran. Science, human rights and democracy are officially considered to be Western and foreign agenda against national security.
Your time is up. I think we have good chances to finish the speakers list. So I do thank you for your cooperation. And now I give the floor to the Coptic European Association in Australia.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Wagi Raouf Salib, and I represent the European Union of Coptic Organization for Human Rights. Yesterday, I was here and I wanted to speak about the statement number 2 in the Egyptian Constitution and its effect on learning, youth, ladies, young, justice, human rights, and different aspects of the activity of the minorities of Egypt, especially the Christians. I spoke about facts and not illusions, and with polite expressions. But after 1 minute, I was stopped from completing my words by Mr. Chairman, because I approached a little bit from the Islamic Sharia and its effect over the Egyptian Constitution and life of the minority in Egypt. Ladies and gentlemen, we speak about human rights, but maybe we need to speak in the future with more open mind than yesterday. Because if we are prevented from telling the truth in our land, we must not be prevented from telling the truth here in the United Nations. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you. I give the floor now to Kash K, Human Rights Defenders Committee. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Iran is multinational and multilinguistic and multicultural country. Before the Paris government, each of the states had a degree of independence at the time with historical and cultural identity. The Islamic Republic regime, with a security look at the issue of nations and ethnics in the past 4 decades, has even violated...
There is a point of order from the distinguished delegate of Iran. We'll come back to you. Distinguished delegate of Iran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you please from you take a point to this, that the NGO that I speak and use the international language. The official name of Iran is Islamic Republic of Iran. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me. The Islamic Republic of Iran. Thank you. You finished your... Is there any other state who would like to make a point of order? Right. So we go back to the speaker. Thank you.
Example, Article 15 of the Constitution on the teaching of non-Farsi language has never been implemented in Iran. Turks constitute the major parts of Iran's population. Among all the ethnics and nations of Iran, the Qashqai Turks who live in the southern regions of Iran have been under the greatest pressure and repression. In the very early years, the regime of the Islamic Republic suppressed Qashqai people and executed Qashqai leaders, and through all-embracing pressure, provided a platform for their assimilation and destruction. Qashqai Turks face a population of about 4 million people without any even an independent media threatened with extinction, and in the absence of interference of international bodies, this nation will disappear from scene. For example, the tribal and the nomadic Qashqai community is dying because of the spiteful policies of the regime of the Islamic Republic. Policies of the Islamic Republic regime toward non-Farsi nations are cruel and discriminatory and in violation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international conventions. Therefore, I call on the Human Rights Council of United Nations and all related international bodies to intervene as soon as possible on the issue of non-Farsi nations and Iran.
Your time is up. I'm sorry. And I give now the floor to the Balochistan United Front from the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you, Chairman and President and other fellow customers. I am from Balochistan United Front Human Rights Group. My name is Jamshid Amiri. The systematic, historic and equality has greatly damaged and limited the Baloch people in making any form of meaningful public participation in access to employment, education, health, property development, ownership, housing, social welfare, media and cultural life, all of which make the basic human rights for all human life across the world. When discussing this employment opportunity of youth Baloch people, it is essential that we must raise the issue of the recent project put forward by the Islamic Republic of Iran, referred to as the development of Balochistan coastal area. The project, since its establishment, had employed non-Baloch people to this specific coastal region, providing them with the land and resources which belong to Baluchistan people. It is putting young Baluch people at disadvantage and have therefore no career to implement opportunities in order to them to enable them to build up their future. Under the pretext of the unsustainable development on the shore of Baluchistan, which is called Makran Shore or coastal area that is stretched from the Strait of Hormuz to the border of Pakistan. This will be the Iranian government interest to train youth Baluch students and provide jobs instead of engineering migration on non-Baluch in the Makran coastal area. Chabahar coastal area have great opportunity for the neighboring country and the international community to develop business, but without using youth Baluch people, it will be anti-Baluch project. Indeed, a population migration plan...
Your time is up. Thank you very much. And I give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Madam Moderator, at the outset, my delegation welcomes the convening of 10 sessions of the Forum of Minority Issues. The Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran guarantees the legitimate right and the freedom of the different linguistic, religious, racial, and ethnic groups. In this sense, and according to the Article 19 and 20, all the people of Iran, whatever the ethnic group or tribe to which they belong, enjoy equal rights and the color, race, language, and the like, do not present any privilege. Furthermore, Article 20 stipulates that all citizens of the country, both men and women, equally enjoy the protection of the law and enjoy all human, political, economic, social, and cultural rights, in conformity with the Islamic criteria. Madam Moderator, the Islamic Republic of Iran is a land of diverse ethnic and religious community that live side by side with the different traditions, customs, and the language, attach great importance to the minority issues. The Iranian society is a successful model of broadly and a peaceful coexistence. Consequently, in order to develop and apply of such policy, one of the principal objectives of the government is always to enhance and consolidate this relationship. In this regard, we believe that the enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedom of all people, including minority youth, empowers them to contribute to the political, civil, economic, social, and cultural development of their countries. Against this backdrop, considerable steps have been taken by my government to provide the great protection of their minorities' rights, including inter alia, the appointment of a special assistant to the President of the Republic on the minorities, the codification of citizen rights charters in which particular have been paid to the right of religious minority, and the establishing of the minority rights in the Committee in the Minority Ministry of the Interior. Madam Moderator, finally, it should be noted that the Article 15 of the Constitution has stipulated that the official language and the script of Iran is the Persian. However, the use of the local ethnic language in the press and the mass media, as well as...
Your time is up. I'm sorry. My apologies. And I give the floor now to the African American Society for Humanitarian Aid and Development from Sudan.
Yeah. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته شكرا للفرصة.
Praise be to God, the merciful, the compassionate. Thank you for giving me the floor. So we know we're enjoying an economic, technological boom. The conferences and the WSIS summit that took place in Geneva recognize the rights of all categories, particularly of youth, their right to use and have access to those new technologies to disseminate human rights principles, particularly minority rights, in order to raise the profile of progress made in that sphere. Our American Human Rights Organization, in cooperation with other NGOs, have the following recommendations to make, in particular to Sudan. First, there's a need to develop ICT technologies to allow youth to know what activities and projects are available to them, provide online services to allow the launch of activities, particularly in the Darfur region and Blue Nile regions, also to enable online education courses and respect the conclusions of the national dialogue in order to achieve peace, to encourage interreligious tolerance, intercultural tolerance within Sudanese society, to allow a greater social development for women and youth, step up cooperation with the international community to consolidate human rights in general for all and in particular for minorities. We need to encourage civil society to fully play its part in protecting minorities in particular. I thank you.
And also for keeping the time. And I give the floor to Kifa International from Israel. Kifa International, are you here? Okay, please.
هتكلم باللغة العربية.
I'll be speaking in Arabic. I am Mohammed Fihad. I come from Syria. I live in Germany. Our association is based in Germany, and we seek to promote tolerance and brotherhood with other NGOs, and we build ties with neighboring countries. In Germany, we work through educational projects with universities, academia, and we seek to protect minorities whose rights have been violated. We call on the UN to help us so that we can continue to disseminate the principles of love and love, peace and tolerance. The Kurd minority remains the subject of discrimination, particularly in the north of Syria. Many youngsters have lost all opportunities to integrate into schools or universities. We as an association, we can help them if the UN helps us. We would like to see Kurds living in Iraq or in Germany can receive education in their own language. Moreover, a large number of youngsters in the Middle East need to build bonds of friendship with young Arabs and with young Israelis. We're an association indeed which calls for that prospect, for that bonding of cultures.
Now the floor is given to Freedom Front Plus from South Africa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to open my document. Chairperson, I would like to thank you for this opportunity and all protocols observed. I represent the Afrikaner youth as the youth leader for the Freedom Front Plus in South Africa. I would like to thank each and every participant who has made statements, remarks, and the panelists for their words. As a minority youth in South Africa, it is welcoming to be reminded once again that we are not alone with the issues that we face. Social media is both a blessing and a curse. In South Africa, the written media portrays minorities as the enemy. Minorities become marginalized and stereotyped to mere race and ethnicity. South African youth in general face immense challenges with regards to unemployment, collapsing or poor basic education systems, expensive higher education, etc. Then the minority youth, especially the Afrikaner youth, are further challenged by marginalization through the media. This creates minority youth to feel ashamed of who they are. With the birth of digital media, a new platform to get the correct message across has been created. A number of organizations have been able to take major strides towards equality due to digital media, specifically social media, be it through forums, posts, campaigns or events. It is a large platform that allows challenges that are being faced by minorities to be voiced. The other side of the coin, however, is the marginalization and the discrimination of minorities through social media. A current example in the South African concept is of a student leader at the University of the Free State, where I'm from, that took to social media to voice her prejudice towards certain Afrikaner minority students at the university. Not only does this polarize the society, but it incites violence. It is easy to encourage radical actions via social media without having to step up and face the realities of such actions. Such actions discriminate, increase racism, disrespect basic human rights. A person is reduced to nothing but race and quota, affecting the dignity of such a person.
Your time is up. I thank you. And I give the floor now to the Information Group on Crimes Against the Person from the Russian Federation. if you are around. No? Okay, then I will come. Are you here?
Прошу прощения.
I'm here, sorry. Hello, I represent a group for crimes against the person in Russia. Today we speak of free access to the internet for minorities and combating propaganda on the internet. Sadly, we're forced to know that for modern youth in minorities in Ukraine, the internet is neither free nor indeed safe. In particular in Ukraine, there's direct restriction of access to international networks, including Kontakte and peers, media groups. The Ukrainian media works effectively tantamount to state propaganda following a decree in March 2014, a resolution then. Therefore, information in Ukrainian media effectively are neither full, they're not neutral, and they serve solely to promote state propaganda. For representatives of minorities, particularly whose positions on political issues are run against the mainstream, the digital media is not safe, I repeat. Offensive insults, intimidation accompanies any opinion that runs against the mainstream. In Ukrainian internet, there's a Minoranze peacekeeper site that contains personal information of people who have to dissent against the government. There have been a number of cases when people have been arbitrarily arrested by the Ukrainian security forces for voicing an opinion that goes against the existing government. For that reason, I call on the international community to pay special attention to the situation with the exercise of the right to access to free information in Ukraine. And we would call on the Ukrainian authorities to put an end to this arbitrary conduct and finally put a stop trying to close the site for its peacekeeper, because it places at risk the lives of citizens and people in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to the Association for the Defense of the Alubite Rights from Switzerland.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سلام من الله عليكم جميعا وسلام على أهل بلد الحضارات.
Praise be to God, the merciful, the compassionate. I would like to greet you and greet you from the country of civilizations in Iraq. Now, the rights of minorities in the world, are they part of human rights? The answer naturally is yes. However, there are certain countries don't respect those rules and those rights, and we can say that those countries do not exercise justice for all categories of society. And this applies, sadly, to a number of democratic and advanced countries, since minorities don't have the space that they deserve in the media. Not to mention sometimes when minorities have suffered from hate speech. All citizens, especially minorities, should have equal access to media and in good faith, since without good faith we see that youth fall into the hands of terrorists and those outside the law. A perfect example of this is the way that ISIS and Daesh have recruited so many youngsters, boys, girls, women, have all been recruited through the media, be it online or offline. They were then sold at the slave markets. Therefore, the role of digital media is extremely important and must be used in good faith. I think that it is necessary today not to divide societies. On the contrary, we need to ensure equal opportunities for all citizens in order to best combat terrorism that is disseminated in the media, and not offer any pretext to anyone to use hate speech or to fuel divisions in society and through the world. Thank you.
Okay, and I give the floor to the Popular Assembly Project.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Popular Assembly Project is here today representing the citizens of the Free Territory of Trieste. Our youth minority received from the Italian media an inadequate educational system, are not being properly educated on the real situation of our territory. They are being discriminated against by the administrative Italian state who have hidden the true origins and economic and social potential of our country. Unfortunately, the failure of the Italian government, our current administration, to implement international treaties and the misinterpretation and false implementation of the 1954 Memorandum of London has brought the capital of the Free Territory of Trieste from the 1991 until now to a staggering loss of almost 27,000 residents, at a rate of more than 1,000 inhabitants per year. Most of them are young. The cultural and identity education that is being taught to our youth are both false and misleading, so that in this current situation it is not impossible to guarantee them normal political and cultural growth, inspired by their true identity and origins. Our territory is an important neutral zone recognized by the international community, both wanted and then constituted with the 16th resolution of the United Nations Security Council of the 10 of 1947, which is also guarantor of his integrity and independence. Now, with the help of the Security Council and the Italian state, it is fundamental to demand the full respect of those international laws, which in the immediate post-war period constitute the futuristic model of our country, and that we, the young generation of that era, were left in total obscurity of true nature of our country, as are our children today. Future generations should no longer have to face the discrimination of their fundamental rights solely to satisfy complex geopolitical imbalances, but must be reacquired the awareness of their rights that are being denied them. The world of tomorrow should be built with the action of today.
Your time is up. And I give the floor now to the Fala Kadim Kakai Foundation.
I'm here. Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Liza Saber. I come from Kurdistan of Iraq. I belong to the Kakai minority, and I am representing Falakaddin Kakai Foundation that work on cultural and tolerance issues. I would like to share the experience of my community. The volatile political and social situation in which the genocides and mass killings committed by different actors in the last few decades makes impossible the establishment of an efficient education system for young people. Recently, the situation worsened for young people from Yazidis, Kakais, Christians, and other minorities due to the displacement caused by young people from the minorities is also aggravated by the displacement caused both by ISIS and by the most recent military confrontation between the Iraqi government and the KRG forces. Education is at the core of any transitional justice process, and it is an indispensable tool in order to build a more just and tolerant society. Our intervention wants to call on the Iraqi government and international community, in particular European Union and United States, for the establishment of educational program for young people from minorities. Most of our young people are prevented from completing their education, and the provision of scholarships with the opportunity to study abroad would grant them the opportunity to contribute when back to the development of their own country in different sectors such as media and education. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, and for keeping the time. I would just like to say that I have 3 more speakers from the civil society, 2 more from member states, and then we are basically done. And I need to apologize because I don't think we have time to come back with the panelists. So now I will give the floor to the Middle East Center for Training and Consultant.
شكرا سيدتي لإعطاء الكلمة. أنا وليد عبد الحليم من
Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Walid Abdel Halim from the Middle East Center for Training. I work in Egypt. I belong to the Bedouin minority. We think that achieving peace consists of guaranteeing for young people freedom of expression, equal opportunities, as well as access to the rights of gaining information through the media and other parts of society. My experience shows that armed conflict in the north of the Sinai has prevented the use of the internet freely, since electricity is cut off for over 10 hours per day. Media are becoming today in Egypt a sword hanging above the heads of minorities, since they no longer have access to information through the media. We have no way of showing this or modifying the hate speech against us. All we can do, this is done through cutting the electricity. This is what's necessary to build modes of communication between minorities that would allow minorities to have their voice heard. We call on the government to review its decision regarding the law on communication media in order to allow minorities to follow information, listen to the radio, get information, be it in all regions where the internet is not available. Moreover, the government needs to adopt a new law to identify hate speech and the perpetrators, the speakers of that hate speech, in order to duly prosecute them. Thank you.
Floor now to Associazione Sovranazionale Veneto from Italy. I tried. Are you in the room? Okay, if not, I will jump to Trieste NGO. Please.
Thank you, moderator, honorable chair and panelists. I'd like to introduce an example of how an evolution in the media environment can change our perception on human rights. I'm talking about the Free Territory of Trieste, a small piece of sovereign land in the heart of Europe, created in 1947 by virtue of an international treaty that is still, as of today, in force. This simple truth was nowhere to be found on traditional media for decades. It is still completely and forcibly removed from the public discourse. But something happened. The actual first-hand pieces of information that determine the specific legitimate human and civil rights claims of the citizens of the Free Territory of Trieste were published on the internet, and they were suddenly available to the general population, which began to protest. So what was the reaction of the political and media establishment to the thousands of Triestines asking for the right of citizenship, rights of development, and so on to be respected? As early damage control, repressive measures were taken, such as some unorthodox accusations of seditious gathering made by Italian authorities, for instance. But in the long run, the only answers that the citizens are receiving as of today is no precise and convincing answers. So it is clear that the Italian government is now pretending that the issue doesn't really exist, hoping to see the questions of thousands of citizens of the Free Territory of Trieste just spontaneously fade away. It doesn't work like that, and it will not even in the future, now that the large-scale communication has, for the first time in human history, been in part democratized by social media, and answers to the legitimate concerns of citizens should be given in an honest, timely, and exhaustive manner. It is also worth mentioning that the United Nations is not just an external observer to the question of Trieste, but is an integral part of it, and we would like the human rights institution to be aware and supportive of the rights of status of the Free Territory of Trieste.
Yeah, thank you. I give the floor now to Anina Cicu from the May 16 movement.
Merci, Madame la Modératrice. Je vais être très courte.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief, just to answer the questions that you asked earlier. Media and social media in particular have allowed us to fight against social and spatial segregation which French youth experiences, especially in the suburbs. And in fact, this works. We have been able to build up a community of Roma advocates who live in these impoverished suburbs, and this has enabled us to reach a broad audience and have people participate in events that we organize. So it's a very useful tool, but it can also trigger a great amount of racist violence, and we would like our states to take up their responsibilities so as to ensure that this type of behavior doesn't go unpunished. We know that these sanctions will not make these racist expressions disappear as long as the states themselves run a racist repressive policy, and that is in fact the source of racism. So we're expecting states to act first and to help us apply pressure so that things change in reality. Thank you
very much. That completes the civil society list, and I have 2 rights of replies. So I will give the floor now to Greece.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are exercising our right to reply with regard to the issue of minority education in Greece. In our intervention yesterday, we have referred to the issue of education for minority children in Thrace. As this issue has been raised once again, I should stress that the rights of the Muslim minority in Greece, as foreseen in the Lausanne Treaty, are fully implemented. Bilingual schools, elementary and secondary, exist and have been functioning without interruption since the 1920s. There has been a merger of some elementary schools for administrative reasons in settlements where there are less than 9 pupils. It is obvious that a school cannot properly function with such a reduced number of pupils. In this case, there is adequate transport of the children to the schools. Bilingual nurseries have been created by decision of the Greek government, although this was not foreseen in the Lausanne Treaty. Special quotas have been established to facilitate the accession to Greek universities. That means that the children of the Muslim minority have the right to participate either to the examinations for accession to the Greek universities open to all Greek citizens and to the examinations through the special quotas. The issue of not speaking well both languages is a complex issue related to many reasons. This is a common problem to many children having a bilingual family background, whether they belong to minority or have a migrant background. Nevertheless, it is a fact that the schools, teachers, all expenses, books, transport of children are all provided free and paid from the Greek budgets. Teachers working in the schools have been educated in their majority in Greek universities. There is a special department in the University of Thessaloniki with a 4-year program for the formation of teachers of Turkish language. Let me also bring to your notice that there are numerous lawyers, scientists and deputies in the Greek parliament belonging to the minority who evidently master both languages. As a conclusion, let me say once again that the Muslim minority in Thrace enjoys fully both the rights of all Greek citizens and the special right.
Your time is up. Thank you, Madam. And now I give a right to reply to South Africa as the last speaker on the list.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. From the onset, let me state that we're not exercising any right of reply, albeit the force sentiments that we have had at this forum will not deter the government in implementing its vision, clear policies and programs to promote unity, reconciliation, nation building and social cohesion in our country. We urge that more guidance be given to those organizations whose ideology the United Nations declared a crime against humanity. It is with shock to us and disbelief that organizations here appoint themselves as representative of an entire group of people. It is incumbent upon us South Africans from all walks of life to embark on programs dedicated at eradicating all lingering negative legacies of our apartheid past and discrimination from the same past. We cannot and may not ignore the history of our country. Our past has shaped our constitution, and if we want to move forward, we need to acknowledge that past. It is therefore impossible to erase the legacy of 300 years of colonialism and apartheid in just mere 2 decades. Many people in South Africa still today carry painful memories of apartheid regardless of their races. On the topic at hand, we'll be amiss if we did not recognize the increased misuse of social media, including hate speech online, In South Africa, this has necessitated the government to enact a law that is meant to stop hate speech both online and offline, namely in the form of the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes Bill. On the issue of languages, the government actively promotes the use of all official languages.
Your time is up, with my apologies. And there's nothing left for me but to thank you for your participation, especially to those of you who formulated concrete ideas, recommendations and called for action. And with that, I thank you and I pass the floor back to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I think we have had a most fruitful dialogue, discussion. I thank the moderator for her excellent soft landing, and I thank the panel for their contribution, but more importantly, I thank all the participants for your valuable contribution, for your recommendations, and I would like to inform you that we will resume at 3 o'clock right here, but before that there are 4 side events taking place at 1 o'clock now until 3 o'clock in rooms 22, 23 and 24. I now declare close the 3rd meeting of this 10th session. Thank you very much.